Hello, this is Mark Tucker,
Hey there, this is Alan Furstenberg, and we are Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Hey, Alan,
Hey, Mark,
big
you-
episode.
big episode. Wow. This is episode 150.
Dun dun dun!
Ooh. Last time we said, confetti and stuff, and picture the confetti and streamers again falling this time.
Yeah, I even wore my new cap.
Ooh, very snazzy. Very, very snazzy for the occasion.
There we go. Nothing but the best for this episode.
Yeah, except we don't seem to have the best video for me this episode.
Yeah, we do have a little technical difficulty. You're looking a little like the Flash.
Yeah, a little fuzzy tonight.
How are you feeling? Are you feeling all right? Are you feeling all there?
I'm feeling all here. It's been a busy, crazy week though, I can tell you that. But 150 episodes, when we kicked this off, and I mentioned this back at 100 episodes, but when we kicked this off, Carol kind of got us together, suggested we do this,
Yep.
and said, look, try it out for 10 episodes. If you can make it 10 episodes, you've got some staying power probably.
Yeah, so I don't know, we're either stubborn or I don't know, we just really like to talk to each other. But that was back what, July 2020. So it's been a few years.
It's been a few years, and we'll have our third anniversary episode coming up soon.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think we did for episode 100 was looking back at the past several years of voice first development,
Yeah.
and looking forward. And I was reading the transcript of that today, and it's interesting to see what has changed in the last 50 episodes that we did not predict at all. We were really off base.
Well, it'll be interesting to get to that. So I kind of looked back a little bit and like, well, what was it like when we first started out? When we were thinking like, oh, we'll talk about voice topics, and you primarily have experience with Google Actions, and I primarily have experience with Alexa skills. Got a little bit of exposure to Bixby capsules as well, and we'll just kind of tackle different topics and just kind of get different perspectives, like how do you do it for this, how do you do it for that, or what's new and going on. And a number of episodes we just kind of like checked out to see like what were we doing that week. So that's kind of how it started.
Right. And 3 years ago there was lots of new stuff that kept launching, and that was being introduced and being changed, and it felt like for voice developers there was a lot that we needed to be on top of. It was really exciting times. Not quite as exciting anymore. And I mean, I don't mean to sound too much like a downer, but
things have changed in
things have
some
changed a lot in the past, 150 episodes.
Yeah. So we won't talk much about it today, but Google Actions development is going away.
Yeah, that will be next week's episode.
And I don't know, we got to talk a lot about a lot of different topics. We've got to talk about account linking. We talked about our work in the open source community, and the different open source projects that we've worked on and contributed to.
We've talked about how those open source projects fit into the voice community. We've talked about the voice community and how a great group of people that we're both still talking to today about voice and about projects beyond voice. So it's a fantastic community.
Yes, it is. It's one of my favorite group of people, and I've got to expand my exposure to not just developers who I kind of like primarily hung out with, but conversational designers and business owners, and just lots of different aspects of the voice community. We've got to meet lots of different people, attend some conferences, do a live episode at a conference.
I was going to say, of the past 50 episodes, the two that really stand out in my mind. The first one was when we were at the Voice Summit last year.
Yeah.
And recorded in front of a live audience and took live questions. That was an amazing episode.
That was a lot of fun.
And hopefully we'll be able to duplicate it again this year. And the other one was the Christmas episode that we did.
Oh, that's right.
Which was a load of fun.
The 12 Days of Voicemas.
Yeah. That was a load of fun to put together. It was great to see a bunch of different members from the community getting together and contributing, little bits and seeing how it all came together. That was really fun to do.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We got to talk about other topics, just typical programming topics about, what tools do we use in debugging, about file systems and databases and calling APIs. And so we've got to talk about lots of different topics. One of our favorite, voice content management systems.
We did explore voice content management systems a lot over the past 50 episodes. That was several threads worth. And that was exciting. And then it seemed like all of that got overshadowed.
Yeah, so things are kind of changing. Like we said, we've like a long time Alexa evangelist Jeff Blankenberg is moving on to something else. So that's interesting. We got some new people that's behind the Alexa Champions program. Got some people that we know. Emerson has joined the evangelist team. So some different things happening there. The Voice Summit conference is kind of going AI now. It's voice is a part of AI, and as opposed to being the main topic of the conference.
And I think one of the great things about that is there's a whole bunch of new stuff to learn, but also a whole bunch of new stuff to teach. I think that a lot of people who are just coming into AI, or who think they understand AI and prompt engineering and generative AI and so forth, have a lot to learn that I feel like the voice industry can be teaching them. So I still think that voice has a role, but voice as, additional modalities, and the notion of voice as a concept, not as an interface, but as a concept, really has a lot to teach and a lot to explore and a lot for developers to work with still.
Yeah, so coming from the voice world where we've had models, they happen to be language models and for natural language understanding, or models for doing text to speech or speech to text. There's now large language models and more people, and something else to look forward to at conferences is that's going to bring in a whole other group of new people to meet and to interact with, and I love the fact that people are approaching this from various different backgrounds and interests. And so then when you're talking with people, you're like, whoa, I never thought of that idea before. Or how are you going to approach this? And just talking through some of those things. So it's pretty exciting. And it does seem like there's a kind of a fresh push of energy and kind of acceleration going on in AI just the last 6 months. This year has been really dominated development wise and in the news about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful, in the next 50 episodes, we're certainly going to be talking about it more. But I also hope we're going to get to something of a point in it where there's a little bit of a shakeout and a settling down. So it's not, I love the frenzy pace that we've got behind AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of hope in some ways that doesn't go away. But I hope that we kind of cast off some of the AI is magic and can do everything
Yeah.
type attitude, and we really start to understand what AI is good for, not just what it pretends to be good for.
Yeah. And one of the big draws to me for things like learning Alexa was not only the voice side of things, but the assistant side of things, where you can ask information, you can get information really quickly, have it do things that like smart home stuff, and I think we're getting kind of a little bit broader perspective on what an assistant could be. And I think right now a lot of it, like with Chat GPT and otherwise, it's still text, but I think we would be able to see voice getting plugged into that more. Plus seeing AI and all kinds of other things, whether it be audio, images, videos.
Yeah.
There's just a lot that and then just kind of the mixing and matching of those in different applications and uses. And so now an assistant would be able to do all kinds of things that it really wasn't quite able to do. Assistants were programmed, and now assistants are going to be less programmed and more kind of adaptive, I think, whether it be generating the responses or interacting with smart homes or kind of other systems to get information.
No, that's an excellent point. I think we are going to see more and more that the prompts will be able to be built around working with known APIs and APIs that get defined.
Yeah.
And we're starting with the home automation systems, but eventually getting to the point, eventually adopting more of Bixby's model, where capsules, and I guess capsules have been renamed to services, define API endpoints, and your assistant knows what endpoints are available and can adapt to it. And I feel like that's really pretty close to what things like the large language models and prompting are working with now.
Yeah.
And we'll see that become more and more the model of what assistants will take on. I don't know. We'll see. I guess that's kind of my hope. And moving away from very, very narrowly defined intent-based systems, or what we think of today as intent-based systems. I think intent-based systems will still exist, but they'll evolve.
Yeah, and there might be some parts that are scripted and some parts that are generated.
Yeah. Well, and again, we need to remember that part of the issue with generation is they're a lot more expensive than a simple scripted template response.
Well, and there are still speed issues with
Yes.
generating a response. When we're used to getting things back in a response within a second or two at the most, it could take 6 to 10 to 20 seconds to generate content, depending on the length and what model you're using.
Yeah, and I think plus whatever time it takes to actually call the APIs to get the data, or whatever you're doing.
Yep.
And that's again, when I said before, that's one of the lessons that voice has to teach. I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons, is that waiting 5 or 7 seconds already feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
Waiting 10 or 15 or 20 is unreasonable when it comes to voice.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why they started back off with the text chat model as opposed to a voice model.
Yeah.
But I see that's one area where things can improve, and hopefully we'll see some advances. We'll kind of be at this point in next year and just see where things have gone. Something else that's interesting that's changed over the years is that before there was this definite feeling that there was kind of a race between Alexa with their devices and Google with their devices, and new features or new functionality, different device types, different languages, released different places around the world, and there isn't quite that same feeling. It kind of feels like a lot of devices are out there, and now we need to take advantage of them. But we're also seeing voice show up on the phone, in certain web browser cases. So there's kind of been this expansion where you can find voice in lots of different areas, and it's going to, make Amazon, particularly since you can still program for Amazon, kind of rethink how it's going to put large language models into it, or in what ways they can make that kind of surface content easier than what maybe they've done in the past.
I think one of the biggest things that we saw over the past 5 years since Google launched Assistant and the Google Home devices was that both companies had to keep ramping up what their products were doing.
Yep.
We saw a huge amount of innovation coming out of Alexa once Google entered the market. And we saw Google continuously trying to do more and more and more, as Alexa tried to do more and more and more. With Google essentially leaving the market, I mean, because what app actions are not the same, and we shouldn't think they are. App actions are closer to what Siri is doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good question, I think, just how much Amazon is going to keep advancing Alexa, or if they're going to try to take Alexa in a different direction, or exactly what their approach is to monetizing Alexa, because that's what they're facing at this point, is how do they monetize Alexa?
Yeah, and it does seem that is increasingly over the last 6 months been shaping their direction, and their decision making is more questions of what things are making money and what things aren't, and we've seen that in the reduction of workforce at Amazon that's been dedicated to Alexa.
Yeah, and how that impacts developers is multifold. In some ways it's what market can we develop for, or is it suddenly that features are no longer available or aren't going to be made available? Is it that we're seeing fewer people who will have a dock device or a screen device, or
Yep.
Who knows? And because of that, how does that narrow what we want to do? If Google's play is correct, and mind you, I don't think that it is, but does that mean that we're going to see more voice forward things rather than conversational? And how
Yep.
does that impact developers who have been working on more heavily conversational stuff? I don't know.
Yep.
These are going to be questions that I think we'll see how they play out. And again, I think the real interesting mix in all of this is that 50 weeks ago, everybody was writing off conversational voice. The people were saying, conversational voice isn't where it is. It's, command driven. You issue a command, it executes it, and you're done. And ChatGPT said, no, conversation's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And people started thinking conversation again. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays in.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be more change, I think, in the next year. In some ways, I think things won't change immediately in the developer ecosystem as far as like Alexa goes, as far as what can be done. But there's got to be some new advancement. I would think if it doesn't happen within this first year, it's going to really put Amazon behind if they can't figure out how to incorporate LLMs in.
Behind who?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, that's kind
I guess other alternatives to voice with AI, right?
I guess, but I feel like, and I know this is my bias showing through, that none of those other alternatives to voice addressed the things that voice did.
Yeah.
Amazon has been pushing the ambient element of Alexa. And as as they're talking about widgets, which is something that, has really come up, they've really been pushing in the last 50 weeks. How the ambient nature of those widgets. And that's not something that the AI systems are yet able to really tap into. They're still all about opening the web page or opening the app on your phone.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why Google thinks they've got the jump, because that's where they're living, is opening the app on the phone or the watch or auto or the tablet that's sitting on your, it's clear that that's what they're betting on. I'm not convinced. And I know this is my bias, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, it's lots of questions that are kind of just hanging out there as far as where the direction of things are going.
Right. And that's an interesting point is, at episode 100, we didn't have the same sorts of questions. We were a lot more optimistic. We said, things had cooled a little bit, but it's clear that voice was really geared up to charge ahead. Google had refocused their efforts. Google had literally just announced that they were leaving conversational actions. But Google was firing on all cylinders with app actions. And there was lots and lots of potential there.
Right.
And I don't know if we still see that potential today. And Amazon was making all sorts of announcements. And I'm not sure we're seeing those announcements coming through or what the state of them all are.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm still really charged about voice. I'm still really charged about voice with AI. And maybe this means that, the smattering of custom assistants that were out there will become less of a smattering. And we'll see, because that's another thing that we talked about a lot in the past bunch of episodes are, local speech to text processing and local and personal assistance. And maybe that is where things are going to be going.
Well, and we're talking about, having your data, your own personal data, that's at the fingertips of your assistant. So scanning whatever information that's important to you, and then you can ask questions about, list of documents that you care about or things. So now that's, we've got all this information, and it's going to be about curating or collecting those things that are important to us, and then to be able to ask questions about it and get answers, really quickly.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's lots of potential, and it's really going to be interesting to see where it all goes.
Yeah, it's our next 50th episode will be interesting to see where things turn out.
Yeah. So hope folks hang with us until we get to episode 200. It's going to be a ride. But I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that's going on, and I feel really comfortable that we'll be there and talking about it. We'll still have our weekly chats.
Yep.
And compare notes on what craziness we've been up to that week.
Oh, but it's going to require us to learn and to adapt and grow. I didn't know anything about AI really 6 months ago, and everybody's just jumping in and kind of learning as we go along. So
but again, 7 years ago, neither of us knew anything about voice development.
That is absolutely true.
And who knows what we're going to know 7 years from now.
That's true. It's going to always be something new to learn, and I'm glad I have a friend like you to share it with, and thankful for our listeners that show up and check things out and then give us feedback.
Yep. And again, you can always, we always love your feedback. You can find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Yep. You can find us on the Alexa Slack. Certainly you can, comments below in the YouTube channel. we always love to hear what you're working on and what you think we should be looking at, because there's a lot out there, and we're missing some of it. We know that. So we'd love to hear your inputs.
And we will catch you on our next episode of Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Happy 150th episode, Mark.
Same to you, Alan. Thank you.